In this final reflection, we are given the material in chapter 2 of Father James Martin's book, The Jesuit Guide to Almost Everything, which is entitled Six Paths. And it could be summarized as six paths towards God. It's related to the topics that we've been talking about in this mentors camp, which centers on finding God in all things, a very important principle in the Jesuit spirituality. Now, I'd like to use a author, and her name is Margaret Silf, who describes this journey to finding God by looking at our life from a few perspectives. She says that in our life there is what we call the where I am, and the how I am, and who am I. In the where I am, we talk about things that we cannot change. And the things that we cannot change sometimes is the place where we sometimes feel trapped. But we have to move on and say, no, there's another segment in our life. Things that we could not change are like our heritage, the way we look, it's just the way we are. But the other part of our life is the place where we can experience freedom, and that is the choices that we make in our life. In the choices that we make, we end up deciding what to do with the things we could not change. But then Margaret itself says there is a deeper part of our life, and that is the who am I part. The who am I part is where we find God. The who am I is when we discover deeply God's purpose for our life, which we've been talking about in this mentors camp. And the more we make choices on the basis of who we are vis-a-vis our relationship with God, we would experience deeper freedom. In this chapter, James Martin then would like to at least encourage us that we might find ourselves thinking maybe God is not very near. But in these six paths, he wants to remind us we are actually in different stages of moving towards God, even if we sometimes think that we are far from Him. The foundational truth to the six paths is this: there is a God out there who wants to have a relationship with us. He's not hiding from us. So he gives the six paths, meaning all of them are trying to tell us these are places where you can be moving towards God. Belief is the easiest path to be in, because sometimes the people who believe are those who've grown in an environment where they already believe, and they presume that there is nothing you can question with regards to God. But the problem with this path is that's also very dangerous, because sometimes when people who grew up in an environment that you don't question your belief, the moment questions come, you might end up doubting too much. But there is a need to mature in your belief if you are in this stage of your life. Belief is good, but when it is tested, you need to be careful. Now, sometimes we end up experiencing this. We end up disliking our experience of belief, and we move away from the traditional approach to finding God. We sometimes move away from the Catholic Church, maybe, or even the Protestant church that we belong to. And James Martin describes this as the path of independence, that I can go at it on my own. Father James Martin says these people who are in the independence path sometimes are the best critiques of the church. Sometimes we might want to listen to them because they have a bad experience of the church. But a path of independence is sometimes is a place where we find ourselves in. We are apart from the church, but we are still potentially looking for a place to find God. Now, he even says people who end up disbelieving, and at some point in time even saying that they are agnostics, These people can presume that, okay, maybe I've lost my way and I don't need to even think about God. But Father James Martin says people who disbelieve have also made a certain choice of why they don't believe. And they've reached that point because they're asking questions about life. And he says, be patient, because these people who are looking for answers, the encouragement is this: keep on asking questions, keep on trying to resolve your issues about God. And this disbelief might be the path towards believing. Another path is the path of confusion, and these are people who probably don't know where they are, and they're not even asking the question whether they believe or not, and it's confusing. But the hope that James Martin wants to give people who are confused is, hey, do not stay confused. Confusion can be the path to clarity, to a greater focus and understanding of what you actually believe in. So confusion might be the path to clarity. The path of return, he describes this as people who have always been religious and found themselves probably moving away from their faith, their belief, and slowly they start missing their experience of belief, and they begin returning to the traditional approach, or they go back to mass, or they go back to praying, or maybe some of you in this mentors camp, you began praying again. Path of return is good. And Father James Martin also would like to warn us that the path of return can be challenging, but he says, fear not, trust in God, and He will be with you. He says here, there are two options. Fear not, trust in God, and He will see that none of the things you fear will happen to you. That's one option. But there's another option. Fear not, that the things you are afraid of will likely happen to you, but they are nothing to be afraid of. Path of return can be challenging, but when bad things happen, we need to have the confidence that God will still be with us. Last but not the least is exploration. Exploration is when things are not settled, we're still looking for something more. We are not happy, there is something missing. And often this search for something missing can be a path towards God. Exploration, and maybe many of us in the mentors camp are experiencing something similar. In the end, I think this mentors camp was meant to help us really find God in the different experiences we have in life. And the deeper we discover who we are, and what is that? The part of us that's looking for God. And the more we are open to finding God, the more we will discover that He has always been there in our life. And I hope this presentation would at least help you focus on the important truths of that chapter, the chapter 2 of Father James Martin's book. Thank you very much.